All right, good afternoon, folks. This is Faris with Trade with Tex. This is going to be just another video in the YouTube weekend chart prep video series. Basically, what we do is every weekend we go over potential tickers to watch for the upcoming week to make money on them, right? Whether you're a day trader, swing trader, whether you're trading common stock, futures, options, right? We trade them all in Trade with Tex. This is going to be a good video for you just to prep up your charts and know what targets you're looking for and what you want from each ticker going into the upcoming week. Okay, so not entirely educational. We're going to focus on making money as that is our kind of mutual goal here. Okay, so last week was crazy. I don't want to talk about it too much, but the bottom line is we had a lot of big tech names report earnings and just crush expectations, right? You wouldn't even think that there's an economic downturn right now. Amazon, what was it? Apple, Facebook, all blowing the revenue estimates out of the water, but also with pretty strong EPS. So the Nasdaq did close strong on the week, right? It was a very, very low volume week. And this actually is probably the only thing I'll say about last week's action. When we have a big Federal Reserve announcement, when we have all these big earnings reports, everybody expects fireworks every day of the week. One thing that really stuck out is that, you know, in the Trade with Tex chat, so this is the paid chat, the $50 a month, we have a bunch of members that are always eager to make money. One thing that really stuck out is that if you were disciplined Monday through Wednesday, you actually saved yourself a lot of headache because we had super low volume. And then at the end of the week, when we actually had Federal Reserve announcement late Wednesday, that transitioned into a Thursday pop back up, and then a Friday run on earnings. Okay, so Thursday and Friday actually filled with opportunity. Not every day that week was very exciting. You could have overtraded, really easy to give back gains, really easy to kind of get in your own head. So the bottom line is we had higher volume on Friday. We want that to transition into this week. If the Nasdaq gets below average volume, okay, then you want to take a step back. And just from an educational standpoint, right, this is the Nasdaq ETF. We're looking at the daily chart, but the idea is that QQQ, it's a good way of looking at it, does not trade under 43 million shares. That's average volume, okay, with a 20-day moving average. So this little line right here, I'm not going to show you how to add it to your chart, but just a way to gauge it. If Monday it trades under 43 million shares, take a step back, right, and kind of wait for A1 setups. Don't just jump on, you know, stock XYZ because Susie and Bob told you to, right? You have to be very patient if volume drops back down. But either way, Nasdaq had a strong close. If we look at futures, I'll give you guys the key levels and what exactly my outlook is for the upcoming week. Again, larger time frames equal larger moves. So I'm looking at the daily, but I did want to refer to the monthly very briefly. So basically each one of these candles represents a month. You might need to add that to your time frames in Thinkorswim, right, by customizing the list if you don't already have it. But the monthly candle closed out strong, right? That's the July candle. First things first, when we have a very large range and bottom line, a new high or a new low on the monthly, it's very important to update your fibs. So before we get into my outlook, just to update your key levels, make sure you're looking at the right ones. Draw your fibs. So you take the fib retracement tool. That's right here. Okay. Draw your fibs from low to high on that candle. And that is from 10,076, so 10,076, to the all-time high, because we hit a new all-time high this month, 11,058.5. Okay, and what this does, so we're drawing from left to right since it went up for this month, since it's green, we're drawing from low to high. What this does is it gives us a lot more nearby levels to focus on if we stay range bound. And if we extend that range, this is a really neat trick. And again, I know this is more advanced, but I'm not going to dumb this down too much just because I want you guys to see how I do my analysis every weekend. If it does extend that range and we pop up, right, we break out above 11,058, which I think we will in August, then all we do is we double click the fibs, and I'll zoom it back in. So it's these fibs right here, double click them, and then we just check these coefficients, the negative coefficients, because these are going to give us levels above. All right. So again, that's more advanced, but I'll show you what that looks like. Basically what that means is that if the Nasdaq breaks out this month, your first target is going to be 11,290. All right. Again, I know I just flew through that, but this is something to be mindful of because it is part of the game plan. Basically, we have a bunch of new key levels, but there are 3 nearby that I'm taking a look at, and then there's that one above that if we break 11,058.5, we're able to go up to 11,000, what was it, 290, I believe. Okay, so that would be the first target for the upcoming month, just looking at the bigger picture. Now, the reason I think we're breaking higher is not because of the big tech earnings or any type of bias. It's just technicals. We're using every time frame here. So we already used the daily, which doesn't really tell us too much, just shows volume increasing. The monthly, which shows that it's breaking out more. Okay, so that's the first time frame that's telling us we're going up. And then the weekly, which is giving us not necessarily a breakout, but a higher close. So for the Nasdaq, right, just to simplify it, the 2 things that stick out to me the most, update the monthly fibs, right? So you're going to update your fibs on the prior month's candle. And then we're going to, obviously, major takeaway here and kind of the theme going into next week, we're very likely to move up because of that higher close. Not necessarily this close versus that one, but this close versus the highest close ever, right? And it's the same thing for any stock that you're looking at, right? It's not just Nasdaq futures. If you're looking at, Roku or Apple or Amazon or even a penny stock, and it closes higher, right? Even if it might not be breaking the high, that's an indication that bulls are in control. So highest close, update your key levels, should be good to go, right? All we're looking for now is a breakout because the weekly and the monthly are saying that we move higher. All right. So bottom line for me, what I'm looking at for those nearby levels, we have this one as a historical one. This is probably the only one that you might not see on your own, 10,909.25. So you can draw that in. Okay, you can pause the video if need be, or slow or speed up the playback speed, whatever you want. So 10,909.25. On Monday, I really want to base above that. If not, I probably won't touch this. That gives us upside to 11,058.5, and then we'd have the next target overhead. Okay, and for support levels, we actually have 2, but the nearest one is at 10,826. I'd be lying if I said that I'm going to buy off that level. What I did all last week was I just bought off of key moving averages. So even though that's the nearest support and I'll be watching it for day trades, for bigger picture stuff, try to look for a pullback to either the 8 EMA on the daily or SMA, whichever you prefer. I use the EMA on the daily, or the 200 hourly SMA, which those of you who swing trade, you already know that's a huge deal, right? That's an inflection point. That is an area where we could reverse. So we bounced off there on Friday for a huge move in the afternoon, right? We nailed that one in the Trade with Text chat. And that resulted in, I think, a triple on Amazon calls and a double on Facebook calls. And Apple was like 1,000-some%. I didn't actually play that one, funny enough, but that provided huge support for the Nasdaq. Okay, so support areas, moving averages, that's going to be the main focus. And then these are the 3 resistance levels. These 2 are the ones that you're going to focus on. Okay. So Nasdaq, we're watching it long going into the upcoming week. Let's see if it can actually pull off that breakout. Last 2 times it failed. Okay. Now, I spent a good bit of time on that because that's arguably the most important chart going into next week. I did want to mention a couple of short-term large cap plays for you options traders to look at. Facebook is one of them. Now, in terms of the tech stocks that reported last week, I really liked the move from Apple because it had that Friday rip, which was just unbelievable. And Amazon is one that's just so easy for me to trade because I've traded it for years and years and years. And it's really technically driven. Facebook, not really in my comfort zone, but the reason I'm bringing it up is, again, not because of earnings, right? Don't really care about the earnings that much for Facebook. They were good, not great. But mainly the TikTok headline. If Trump does pull the trigger and bans TikTok in the US, which there's a lot of buzz about that this weekend, and even if he doesn't, right? Even if there are just more headlines saying that he will, okay? Facebook is an immediate beneficiary of that, right? Facebook owns Instagram. That's a big portion of their revenues. and those users are going to have to migrate somewhere. Now, I wanted to show you guys Snap, but to be honest, I think that this one is a little bit tougher to trade. I think Facebook is easier to trade. Key levels are very straightforward. You'll see why in a second. So I'm watching this on TikTok headlines on the long side. Now, you have to be very, very careful with this, because if you look at the earnings move, see how we have a huge gap here? Gaps are pretty much air pockets, right? In the sense that if we lose this low, it's going straight down. So first thing I'm going to say for Facebook, yes, we're watching it long on those headlines. However, it has a lot of downside risk. So if it cracks 249, which is that support, cut it loose, okay? Or don't even take the trade, right? Let's say you're not in it and it doesn't bounce off of 249 on a pullback, leave it alone, okay? That's going to be the line, all right? So 249 is a support. We have two big resistance levels here for Facebook. If we zoom it into the hourly chart, it's a 20-day 1 hour. All right, some people refer to it as H1 or the 60-minute. We have resistance at 254 and then 255.85. All right, and if we break that, it's a blue skies breakout. Okay, and ideally that's what we want to see this week. So again, 249 is a support that's down here. 254 and 255.85 are the two resistance levels. To give you an idea, if we do break those, then our first target is going to be this. Oh, you still can't see it there. 270 roughly? No, sorry. You can't actually see it there. 262.68. I was looking too far away. Which, again, you can see why we're going over this. It's not just because of bias or TikTok headlines or whatever. It's because we got a lot of upside there. That's some juicy, juicy upside. 7 points. Okay, so Facebook, the breakout would just be over the Friday high. That would give us 262.68 if that confirms. And again, under 249, leave it alone. All right. Now for Roku, this is one that I'm sure a lot of people are watching going into next week. It's been pretty flat. The reason I'm watching it is because I want to focus on a couple of large caps earlier in the week that are likely to price in these earnings moves beforehand. We saw that for a lot of big names last week, right? Where they have pretty high expectations for earnings and a good earnings history, so they just run up into the report and then end up flat afterwards or slightly down, okay? And it's something that a lot of you guys, especially if you're new to trading, have probably noticed. Most of these reports are baked in advance, and you'll see a company crush expectations, but the stock is down, right? And the majority of the time, reason being is that it's priced in, okay? So Roku, I'm actually looking to capitalize on it, baking in those earnings beforehand. Had a little ramp on Friday, mostly with the markets, but earnings are Wednesday in the upcoming week after hours, and there's a 16% implied move, which is huge, right? That's a very big implied move. I'm not a huge fan of the company, if I'm being honest with you guys. Some of the people in the Trade with Text chat are. Actually, I'm probably the minority on that one, but it does have a good earnings history. So again, we're watching for a run up. And the idea here is that it tries to price in at least a portion of that 16% beforehand. So if we zoom it in, you can see that we had resistance historically here and here that have held us down numerous times afterwards. So the levels that we're looking to break for Roku are 157.33, 159.88, and these would essentially just be targets, right? And then the final target is 166.18. To be honest, I would be very, very surprised if Roku didn't print 160s before the report. So already that's 6 to 10 points of upside. Okay, I'd be shocked if it didn't do that. Keep in mind, options will be more expensive because it has earnings coming up. Either way, this will be the final target. These are targets 1 and 2. Okay, boom, boom, and boom. All right. And then for support, because obviously if Roku starts pulling back, you have to watch for some kind of perfect entry. I'm saying this kind of as a pessimist because I'm usually realistic, right? I don't like to overpay for shares or contracts. So ideal entry point here on Roku is 151.23. If you understand fibs, right, just basic Fibonacci retracements, that's the daily fib. And the last daily fib until the all-time high. Okay, so support, resistance, resistance, and then the final target. All right, Roku, looking for a move up this week. Little side note here, we're not going to talk about any other earnings plays, but out of the stocks that are reporting next week, there are a ton of big names, like even Moderna, right, the big vaccine candidate. Not expecting too much from them. I would focus on growth names if you can. So even though Roku's a big name and a growth name, stocks like Chegg, Etsy, even a couple of the solar names next week, they have a couple pot stocks too. Focus on the stocks with higher growth that aren't up huge over the course of July already. Okay? Those are likely to get bigger beats, right? And just bigger moves in general. Okay? Now, last two tickers here are purely based off momentum. So Facebook, we were talking about TikTok headlines, Roku for earnings. Gold and INSG have been crazy lately. These are two completely different tickers, right? Gold, obviously that's a commodity. You guys are hopefully familiar with gold. Very actively traded in our chat room. We traded gold probably, well, speaking for myself, like 3-4 times a day last week. And this was actually my biggest winner. I hit 2 weekly quotas throughout the week just based off of gold alone. And it doesn't matter if you trade futures on this or ETFs. The common ETFs are JNUG and JDST. Just know how they work before you trade them. A lot of leverage ETFs have fees. All of them decay over time, right? That's kind of the common misconception here, is that they are just free money, right? They just go up and exaggerate the move. That's not the case. But these are the ETFs. I mainly trade futures, right? You can trade options on futures or on ETFs. Either way, for gold, no denying that this was a huge week last week. Main catalyst was that the dollar just took a beating, right? Absolute beating. We can look at the dollar index real quick, right? Just getting dragged all the way down. Okay. Main reason is that the Fed is just crushing the currency because they're printing money. And it was kind of funny, actually. Jerome Powell said during the press conference on Wednesday, he said, this is shocking because we've never had such a tough economic situation where we're printing money and inflation targets aren't getting hit. So basically he's saying we're creating so much supply of cash, but somehow the dollar isn't losing value. But if you look at the dollar, it's tanking. Okay, so this is benefiting gold. Now, gold actually did not have a bad close on the week. It closed at its highest level for the year. So again, higher close means that bulls are still in control. We'll see if that stays the case, but as of Friday, that's what happened. Okay, now the two levels to watch overhead for gold are 1998.4 and 2005.4. In order for me to go long again, I would like at the very least for this level to break. Okay, so in order for me to buy gold, I would like for that level to break. In order for me to short, we would need a pretty substantial breakdown. And that would be under the 1960s, specifically under 1955.7. Okay, that would trigger the short and a lot of selling. Okay, at least 15 points. So that being said, for gold, because it closed higher, because it had a very bullish week, I'm still actually watching on the long side, right? It's a blue skies breakout right now. 1998.4 is the first trigger price for another buy. Okay, needs to close above that. All right, and then the last ticker here is INSG, which isn't the hottest stock. It's not the biggest momentum play, but I feel like a lot of the people in here, well, not in the chat, right? I know this is obviously going on YouTube, but a lot of the people that are watching this video are swing traders that are trying to learn how to trade more actively. INSG is a really good starting stock for that because it head fakes a lot. It makes you stay disciplined. And at the same time, it's also a pretty fluid mover when it gets going. So if you capitalize on the breakouts, not just trade it on any given day, then you can make a lot of money with it and learn how to trade actively. Okay. I think this is a great starting point. I think this is a great stock. It's a 5G name that is moving on up. Pretty simple chart, and the reason why I'm talking about it, if we look at the weekly, right, the 3-year 1 week, it's confirming, right? It's not only printing, again, its highest close. You can see how I'm prioritizing my watch list based off of tickers that are closing higher. So that close versus the previous highest close, which was here, okay? Highest close, but it's also breaking through the last fib, which is at 1243. And if you know anything about fibs, that means we're signaling a move up to 1515. Okay? So nice and simple here for INSG. As long as it stays above 1243, which has created a bunch of distance, then it is signaling the long up to 1515. For a short-term breakout to add more, or if you're just waiting for the absolute confirmation, wait for 1390. Okay, that was just last week's high. All right, so very clean looking daily chart. We can even add the indicators, right? We can add the stochastic, see how it's crossing back up. Relative volume above the moving averages, right? It's clean. Okay, indicating a move to 1515. And this is one of those scenarios where, unlike Roku, where we had very nearby targets, risk to reward is not only favorable, but simple, right? We know where the risk is, it's to that fib, or based off your entry, if you want to set a tighter risk. And then the reward is all the way up to 1515, right? So a couple of bucks of reward, $1 of risk, easy, okay? I'm not saying it's going to be an easy trade, but easy setup, right? Very easy to spot, and an obvious entry if it breaks back out. Okay, so just kind of to recap there, because I know we talked about a lot. Nasdaq, highest close. Okay, want to see it break through the key levels that we outlined earlier. You can always rewind if you missed that. Facebook, just an options trade that I'm looking for based off the TikTok headlines. If Facebook doesn't play out, I'm going to go look at the better performer between Apple and Amazon, which I got a feeling it's going to be Apple because of how Amazon closed, but that's my plan B. All right. And then Roku, mentioned a couple of other growth names with it, Chegg and Etsy on earnings, gold and INSG for momentum. Okay. Now, I'm going to wrap this up on a positive note. Last week was not easy, right? As a day trader, I can tell you guys for a fact, you should never, ever let anybody tell you that last week or trading in general is easy. But our best friend is preparation, right? If we prepare, if we draw our key levels, we're ready for the market open on Monday, then we have all the tools possible to assist us in capitalizing and making even more money than we had initially planned. Okay, so last week we were very green in the Trade with Text chat, but it was a combination of consistency and just limiting our losses, right? We were very, very disciplined. If we weren't, I guarantee you I would have been really red a couple of days last week. Not just red, but big losses, which is not allowed. Okay. And if you did enjoy the video, guys, make sure to like and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'm trying to put out videos on a more regular basis, if you can't already tell. And if you want to take your trading one step further, you can join us in the Trade with Text chat. That's just tradewithtext.com. We offer the free week. It's $50 a month, but obviously if you go for 3 months or 6 months, it's a lot cheaper, right? It comes out to like 40 something, and the knowledge that you get from it and also the profits, invaluable. Okay, we got an awesome team in there. But either way, hope you enjoyed the video. Don't forget to like and subscribe, and good luck this week. All right, should be a green one. We got a lot of earnings coming up. Okay, take it easy, folks.